Hi, welcome. I wanted to quickly go over the great news that the CDC director, Dr. Walensky, uh, said on May 20th in regards to those who had been vaccinated. Specifically, that they can take off their masks if they're indoors, outdoors, with people who had been vaccinated, with people who are not been vaccinated, that they are safe, that they do not need to worry, that they can go back to their normal life. So let's just go through quickly what she said, and I'm going to play clips of her saying it because a lot of people are still having a hard time believing it. So I wanted them to hear it from her own words herself. And remember that CDC and Dr. Walensky are both very conservative. So when they say this, they are very sure, they have a lot of data and a lot of research that backs up these statements. Okay, so let's quickly look at these.
Once you are fully vaccinated, 2 weeks after your last dose, you can shed your mask.
You can shed your mask. Basically, that's it. Now let's go through the implications, the questions that people have.
We're sure. There's an extraordinary amount of evidence now that demonstrates the vaccines are working in the real world, in cohort studies, in care facilities, across all states. There's also new data, just even in the last 2 weeks, that demonstrates these vaccines are working in against the variants that we have circulating here in the United States. And also data has emerged that has demonstrated that if you are vaccinated, you are less likely, not likely, to asymptomatically shed the virus and give it to others.
Okay, here, if you listen to what she says the data shows, the research shows. So there's a lot of backing behind these statements, and that you are protected against the variants. Very important. You're protected against the variants. You do not need to worry about that any longer. That you cannot give someone else this virus. There's no asymptomatic spread of those who were vaccinated and tested positive for COVID-19. And even more so, they are not recommending people who were exposed to the virus and are vaccinated to be tested if they are asymptomatic. That is to say, if you're vaccinated and you were right next to someone who was tested positive for COVID-19, you yourself do not need to worry unless you exhibit symptoms. And if you exhibit symptoms, the worst thing that will happen to you is a mild cold. As you'll hear shortly, the vaccines, all of them, protect virtually 100% against death, hospitalization, and severe COVID. So remember, you don't need to worry about variants. You don't need to worry about death, hospitalizations, severe COVID. You don't need to worry about giving it to someone else, asymptomatic spread. You do not need to worry about being indoors with someone who does not have a mask and is not vaccinated. You don't need to worry about getting it from them. You don't need to worry about giving it to them if they're unvaccinated. Okay, so let's listen a little bit more.
But for the most part, when we have seen these studies that have been doing screening of people, testing of people who have been vaccinated, what they're finding is when they're asymptomatically infected, rarely asymptomatically infected, they're not shedding virus to others. You do not need a test if you're fully vaccinated and you've been exposed. So we do know from the clinical trials that the vaccines did what they were supposed to do. They were supposed to prevent severe infection, hospitalizations, and death. And all of them worked equally well in doing so. They were essentially 100% effective in preventing severe infections, hospitalizations, or death.
Essentially 100% effective at preventing severe COVID, hospitalizations, and deaths. This is great news, really great news.
What I would say is it is safe for you as the vaccinated person. You're 95% protected from disease, and in some studies up to 97% protected from disease. For those breakthrough infections that can, rarely occur, for the most part, they are resulting in asymptomatic or very mild disease. So it's really quite safe for you, the vaccinated person. It's not safe for the unvaccinated person. What about?
Okay, so here just what I just said previously. If you are vaccinated, rarely you get infected, very, very rarely. But basically, the basic point that she made there is, if you're indoors with an unvaccinated person, no one wearing a mask, you do not need to worry. There is nothing for you to worry. The unvaccinated person does have something to worry about, but not from you. They only have to worry about someone else who's not vaccinated, and they are not vaccinated in an enclosed space with no masks, and if their circulation is bad, etc. Okay?
Children who are between the ages of 0 and 12. And, we have to treat them as unvaccinated. So yes, those children still do have to wear a mask to protect themselves.
Okay, so here, again, she's not saying the science, and I completely disagree with her, just as I had previously when she said she has a sense of impending doom, she feels fear. Those were not based on data research, in the same way that if you just heard she say the data shows, the research shows. Here she's not saying the data shows, the research shows. Kids 0 through 12 really have no risk of getting it, spreading it, but that's another video. But also, if you listen to at the end of this clip, she said the kids 0 to 12 need to wear a mask to protect themselves. Now, the narrative around masks was always about protecting others and maybe protecting yourself slightly. So again, narrative here, again, she goes off script, and I completely disagree with her, and I'll make another video about that. But the other statements she made were statements where she said the science shows, the research shows, and I will actually go through some numbers right now to show that those statements that she made are legitimate. And again, the CDC itself and Dr. Walensky are extremely conservative, and so when she comes out on behalf of the CDC saying that the data shows, that the research shows that you can take off your mask, that you do not need to worry, that you can go about your life, then we can believe those statements. And let me just go through some quick research that shows this. Okay, so let me just pull this up very quickly. And I will go through. So this is basically a report. You can look it up. COVID-19 vaccine breakthrough infections reported to the CDC between January 1st and April 30th. Okay, so it's just happened. And basically, this is kind of the summary of the data. It's kind of long, and I'm just going to point out a few things. So basically, it says, as of April 30th, so let's look at this first. On April 30th, approximately 101 million Americans were fully vaccinated, which is a little bit over 30%, and really 50% if you take into account at least one dose. Okay, so out of that 100, so always keep in mind 101 million people who were fully vaccinated. We're looking at that, out of that number, those people. We have 10,000 vaccine breakthrough infections. So vaccine breakthrough infections, the only thing that means is that if you were vaccinated and then they took a swab and they found mRNA, virus, COVID virus, then they say it's a breakthrough infection. But that doesn't mean that you're symptomatic. It doesn't mean that you'll give it to someone else. It's just, basically they say they don't do this anymore. But so this number we can kind of ignore. What's more important is this. Based on preliminary data, let's look at this right here. So based on preliminary data, so it's right here. 995 patients were hospitalized, were known to have been hospitalized. Now this is out of 101 million people who were fully vaccinated. 995 were hospitalized. But if we look here, among the 300 of them were asymptomatic or hospitalized for a reason unrelated to COVID-19. So it's not really 995 or 1,000. It's 1,000 minus 300. So it's 700 hospitalized out of 101 million. Okay. Now, second point. Okay, so we have 160 patients who died. However, again, even though it's 160 patients who died, if we look here, 28 were asymptomatic or died from cause unrelated to COVID-19. So it's really not 160, it's 130. Okay, so now, what's even more important than that, so that's 130 deaths out of 101 million people that were vaccinated. Now, some more important points. And this mirrors really what the numbers that we had throughout the whole pandemic. The median age of patients who died was 82 years old. So 50% median, 50% of all patients who died out of 130, 50% of them were 82 years old or older, 50%, which really mirrors the median age of COVID death in general. Now, interquartile range was 71 to 89. So if you have 4 quarters, interquartile, so you got quarter 1, 2, 3, and 4. So quarter 2 and 3, the interquartiles, the middle of the death were between 71 to 89 years old. So what that means is basically that you have 25%, 25%, 25%, 25, 4 quarters, right? 71 years old to 89 years old make up the middle 50%. So we have another 25% above the interquartile range. So the way you can think about it is 75%, 50% plus the 25%, we're over the age of 71. So only 25% of the 130 deaths were below the age of 71. And really, below 50, it's really non-existent. Okay. So I just wanted to point that out. Now, so the summary basically, out of 101 million Americans who had been fully vaccinated, there was 995 people who were hospitalized between January and April, represents 0.00009% of all fully vaccinated Americans. And out of those 995, 300 were either asymptomatic or were hospitalized for reasons unrelated to COVID. This is from why experts are convinced most vaccinated people don't need masks. So I hope I helped. I hope you can feel better knowing that if you are fully vaccinated, you can really go back to your life as normal. And those who are, and you can be around people who are unvaccinated, be without masks, be indoors. Those who are not vaccinated, everyone has had the opportunity to get vaccinated. So it's up to them to either get vaccinated or to do their own risk assessment and make up their own mind. Now, there is the caveat of the immune compromised people, and I'm not going to talk about that because I need to do some research about that. But in any case, I'm not going to go into that because I need to really look at what data there is and what the experts are saying about that. And I think we don't really have full data about that yet. Okay, I hope this was helpful, and I'll see you in the next video. Thank you. Thank you for listening.